Section 3.6 is the last section in Chapter 3, and it's titled Adding and Subtracting Unlike Fractions. So the only term you need to learn today is what is an unlike fraction, and those are fractions with different denominators. So when we are adding fractions with unlike denominators, we want to add the fractions with unlike denominators by renaming the fractions with a common denominator, and then add and simplify as you would with like fractions. So the idea here is we need to get a common denominator. So if we look at the example, it's 2 over 3 or 2/3 plus 1/2. So we notice our denominators are 3 and 2. So we can't add those until we get a common denominator. The easiest way to get a common denominator or to figure out what the common denominator is to multiply the two numbers together. 3 times 2 is 6, so we're shooting for a common denominator of 6. So then remember how to get a common denominator. You have to multiply the top and the bottom of the fraction by the same number that will give you that denominator. So if we want a 6 on the bottom, we need to multiply 3 by what? 3 needs to be multiplied by this 2. But since we multiply the denominator by 2, we must also multiply the numerator by 2, since that actually doesn't change the value of the fraction. Numerically, 2/3 and 4/6 are the same. Similarly with 1/2, we need a common denominator of 6, so we need to get a 6 down here. How do we make 2 a 6? What do we multiply by? We multiply by 3. If we multiply the bottom by 3, we must multiply the top by 3. So that gives us 3 over 6. Now we have a new problem, 4/6 plus 3/6. Same denominator, we can go ahead and add the top, 4 plus 3, 7 over 6, or you can change it to a mixed number, 1 and 1/6. So let's do some examples. Let's add the fractions and make sure that we're writing them in simplest form. So we have 3 over 5 plus 1 over 3. So again, the easiest common denominator is the product of the two current denominators, so 5 times 3. So if we want a denominator of 15, ask yourself, what do you multiply 5 by to get 15? Well, hopefully you're saying you multiplied it by 3. So we also need to multiply the top by 3. That'll give us 9 over 15. But for 1/3, what do we multiply 3 by to get 15? We multiply it by 5, so we also need to multiply the top by 5. 1 times 5 is 5. Now we have two fractions with like denominators, so we add the numerators, 9 plus 5, that's 14, and we write it over the denominator 15. See if you can try this one on your own. We want to get a common denominator, 1/6 plus 3/4. Now remember, the easiest way is to just multiply the two numbers together, but that's not always the best way. Some of you may look at 6 and 4 and realize that there is a number smaller than 24 that both of these numbers go into. So while you could get a common denominator of 24, which is found by multiplying 6 and 4, you can get a smaller common denominator. You're looking for a number that both 6 and 4 divide evenly into. And you may be thinking 12. 6 and 4 both divide into 12. So what do we multiply 6 by to get 12? That's 2. What do we multiply 1 by to get? Then we also multiply 1 by 2, so we get 2 over 12. For the second fraction, we multiply 4 by 3, so we need to also be multiplying 3 by 3. That's 9. Now when we add the numerators, 2 plus 9 is 11, we write it over the denominator, 12. Now I will show you that had you gone and gotten a denominator of 24, you still would have gotten the same answer. So let's just take a look at that. What do we multiply 6 by to get 24? That's 4. So we also need to multiply 1 by 4. We multiply 4 by 6 to get 24. So then we also need to multiply 3 by 6. Now when we add, we get 22 over 24. But you'll notice that this fraction can be reduced. We need to divide the top and the bottom by 2 to get 11 over 12. So you still will get the same answer. but it just takes you a little extra step here because you do need to reduce the fraction. Okay, we're still adding. We need a common denominator. 6 and 8. Think of multiples of 6, and then which one does 8 go into? 6 times 2 is 12. 8 does not go into 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 8 does not go into 18. 6 times 4 is 24, and 8 does go into 24. So the smallest common denominator is 24. Now again, you could have multiplied those two together and used 48. So 6 times 4 is 24. 5 times 4 then is 20. Remember though, this first fraction was negative. 8 times 3 is 24. So 1 times 3 is 3. And now we're adding across the top. Remember your rules for adding integers. Negative 20 plus 3. Those numbers have opposite signs. The first number is negative, the second number is positive. So we're actually subtracting the numbers, and your answer is taking the larger number's sign. Yeah, 20 larger than 3, 20 is negative, so our answer is negative. And we write it over 24. 17's prime. It does not go into 24, therefore this fraction cannot be reduced. Okay, let's look at addition of unlike fractions when we have mixed numbers. Same thing as before, we want a candy cane. So we need to take the whole number times the denominator plus the top. So 6 times 9, that's 54. 54 plus 8 is 62. And remember that our fraction is negative, so we have a negative 62 over 9. For the second part, we have 7 and 5/12. So 7 times 12 is 84 plus 5. That's 89 over 12. So we candy cane this way. We're multiplying the first two, and then don't forget to add in that numerator. Now, we're looking at the numbers 9 and 12. So you're trying to find multiples of 9 that 12 will divide into. So let's look. 9 times 1, that's 9. 12 does not go into 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 12 does not go into 18. 9 times 3 is 27. 12 does not go into 27. And 9 times 4, that's 36. 12 does go into 36 3 times. So our common denominator is going to be 36. Also, never forgetting that that first fraction is negative. So 9 times 4 is 36. What's 62 times 4? This is where the calculator comes in handy if you don't want to do some longhand side work. That's 248. Now we have 12 times 3 is 36. 89 times 3 is 267. When we add the numbers on top, we have a negative 248 and a positive 267. So remember, what do we do to those two numbers? We're actually going to subtract. So 267 minus 248, that's 19 over 36. And now we have to determine whether our answer is going to be negative or positive. Hopefully you're recognizing 267 is larger than 248. 267 is positive, so our answer is positive. Again, 19 is prime. It does not divide into 36, so this is our final answer. A few more examples. Now we're going to subtract fractions with unlike denominators. And to subtract fractions with unlike denominators, we rename the fractions with a common denominator, just like we did for addition, and then subtract and simplify as with like fractions. So let's subtract and write in simplest form. We have 3/8 minus 3/4. So what's a number that they both go into? And sometimes one of your fractions can already be set up in the common denominator. And if you'll notice that 4 is a multiple, or 8 is a multiple of 4, then 8 is going to be our common denominator. And notice how I set it up. I set it up so that all I have to do now is fill in my numerator. So where did I get that from? 4 times 2 is 8, so 3 times 2 is going to be 6. 3/8 minus 6/8, and I did not have to change the first fraction. Now how do we subtract fractions? Remember, just from yesterday, 3 minus 6. How do we subtract integers? We can add the opposite. So now we have 3 plus a negative 6. Those numbers have opposite signs, so we want to subtract them. 6 minus 3 is 3, but 6 is larger. 6 was negative, so our answer is also negative. So the answer here in simplest form is negative 3/8. One last example, we have mixed numbers here that we are going to subtract. So what do we do with mixed numbers? Hopefully you're saying I need to change them into improper fractions first. 7 times 6 is 42, plus 1, 43 over 6. And I think that was an 8. Let me make sure. Yeah, an 8. Now we have 6 times 8, that's 48, plus 5 is 53. So 53 over 8. Now we need a common denominator. So what's a number that 8 and 6 both divide evenly into? And I think we did an example with 6 and 8 already, but maybe not. So if you're not sure, you can start checking. 6 times 1 is 6, 8 does not go into 6. 6 times 2 is 12, 8 does not go into 12. 6 times 3, that's 18. 8 does not go into 18. 6 times 4, that's 24. So there we go. 8 goes into 24. So we want to use a common denominator of 24. How did we get 24? We multiply 6 by 4. So now we need to multiply 43 times 4. 43 times 4, or excuse me, yeah, 43 times 4 is 172. We did 8 times 3 to get 24, so we need to do 53 times 3. 53 times 3 is 159. And now we simply need to subtract 172 minus 159, and we write our answer over the common denominator. Now here this is simple subtraction. When the first number is larger than the second, you don't have to add the opposite. You can just do 172 minus 159. That gives us 13 over 24. If you do add the opposite, it's still the same idea. These two numbers have opposite signs, so they need to be subtracted. 172 is larger. Our answer should stay positive. 13 is prime. 13 does not divide into 24, so we have our fraction in simplest form. So the largest difference today from adding fractions with like terms is, or like denominators, is that you need to get a common denominator first. Once you have a common denominator, all of the rules are the same from yesterday.